believe in teaching to a test, nor do I believe that using a single test to determine a child's abilities is the way to go. I do believe that if my children are going to participate in the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, I'm going to refer to that as CAASPP for the duration of this video, then I want them to do their very best and not be overwhelmed. Hi, I'm Stacey with Kids Learning for Life, and if you're homeschooling in California, your children do not need to participate in the CAASPP testing or the California Science Test, also known as CAST. However, many homeschoolers in California, including Jenny and myself, are opting to join charter schools. These charter schools allow parents more choice in deciding how their child learns, but also getting to benefit from school-provided programs such as teacher support, field trips, live classes, and even support with purchasing curriculum. What some parents can sometimes overlook about charter schools is they are public schools in California and are required to do state testing just like all the other public schools. Participating in state testing is extremely important, especially for charter schools, since the state will look at state testing data to determine if that charter is going to be renewed for future years. So if you love your charter school and want it to stay open like I do, then you're going to want to make sure that you have your children participate in the state testing each year. So how can we as parents prepare our students for this state testing? Well, first, it all starts with not freaking our kids out about testing. We want them to be calm and relaxed when testing, because if they're all stressed out and anxious, then they're more likely to not do so well. On the flip side, you don't want to just tell them, oh, it doesn't matter, just click any button and get through it, because then they'll probably perform poorly and that won't look good for your charter school either. So we're trying to find a balance right between those two to where your child is comfortable but not overwhelmed with the testing. The CAASPP testing consists of 4 parts. There's the English Language Arts multiple choice, the math multiple choice, and then there's the English Language Arts performance task, which is usually the kids reading some sort of selection and then creating an essay. And then the last part is going to be the math performance task, where they're given data and information and then they're expected to solve a problem and even give the why behind some of their answers. Students in 5th, 8th, and 11th, as of recording this video, are also required to do the CAST, the California Science Test, so that would be an extra portion for their testing at the end of the year. So how do we prepare our kids for all these different types of tests? Well, the easiest way is going to be going to the CAASPP website and participating in the practice and training tests. I'll be sure to leave links below to any resources I mentioned so that you can help get yourself logged in and start seeing some of these practice problems. The training tests are short, typically less than 10 question tests that are grade span specific. So they typically have 3rd through 5th and then 6th through 8th and then high school. So these are just giving you some practice problems, but it's more to get your child familiar with the layout and the design of the tests. I like to use these with my kiddos to just show me that they know how to navigate through it, that they can read the problems, they know how to scroll, they know where the help buttons are, and all of that is what I use the training test for. I also like to point out that even though this is kind of that multiple choice, it's not always multiple choice. Sometimes there's A, B, C, D, sometimes there's select all, sometimes there's pick the sentence from the paragraph, and in the math there's definitely some graphs and different things that students will need to utilize. So making sure they're comfortable utilizing all the different types of answers and being able to submit, that is helpful for these as well. Practice tests are a bit longer, about 30 questions from when I did one with my 4th grader, and you can use these to kind of have your kiddo sit down and practice taking a test. Now, the one drawback to both of these tests is there is no answer key, or at least not that I have found. If you have found one, please let me know, but I have scoured and tried to find answer keys to these, and there are not. So while this is a good way for your kiddo to practice with real testing problems, they're not going to get the answers. But in reality, they're not going to get to know their answers during the test either, so that could be something you chat with them about. Typically, the scores don't even get back to the parents until either the very end of summer or even possibly early the next school year. So it's a really long time before you actually get the results back anyway. As parents, we do want the answers though, because if our kiddo is struggling, we want to make sure that if for some reason we don't know the answer, we're giving them the right help. The California.StartingSmarter website does give practice problems and answers. So this is a great place to go and start getting some of those practice problems and being able to have the answers, and you're able to pick between a variety of question types for ELA, math, and science. You can utilize this by giving your students a few practice problems each day, or you could curate all of the questions and answers onto a separate doc and then printing that out and having your kiddos do it. That is a little more time intensive, but that is an option if you wanted to go that route. For the ELA performance task, which is the section that will give your students some sort of documents to read and then ask them to write some sort of written response, you can see sample questions for those as well. By going to smart.smarterbalance.org, not only will you get to see some of the questions that are asked to give you an idea of what your child will be seeing, but they also give sample student essays about what would score a 1, which 1 is the lowest, and what would score a 4. So as parents, this is extremely useful to know, okay, where is my child at and what supports will they need in order to be successful on these tests? Again, I am not a fan of teaching to the test, but if I can let my child see a few of these practice problems, it won't come as such a shock to them when they actually sit down and do the test, so they're not overwhelmed or stressed or anything about the testing. Another resource I wanted to mention that I haven't used personally this year, but I've seen other teachers use it, is going on to Teachers Pay Teachers and searching 4th grade standardized test prep. And that will give you some extra practice problems. Typically, they're on the cheap side, only $5, $10 for an entire pack of questions. And so you could utilize those as well. I can't speak for the validity or how close they are to the California state questions, but again, just kind of giving you an idea of different topics that your kid is going to be introduced to. And one of the most important tips that I cannot stress enough on parents is to remember that the state testing is all done on a computer. So you really want to make sure that your student is comfortable with typing, especially those 3rd through 5th graders, depending on your student's background and what sort of tests they've done before, have probably never even used a computer. So making sure they are comfortable typing and able to get their words onto a computer is extremely important. What I like to have my kiddos use is Typing Club, and I will put a link to my review right over here, and definitely get your kids on that. It's completely free. Try it out and make sure they are comfortable with their state testing. See you next time, and happy homeschooling.